1.5? One. All right, everybody. Welcome. Hope you've had some great sessions this morning. Appreciate the last group. Welcome to everybody to Lead Generation World out in our LinkedIn audience and on YouTube. So we're live streaming this right now, and we're also producing some content for my podcast called The Shark's Perspective, which has featured a lot of the biggest names in marketing and advertising and lead generation, performance marketing over several years now. So first up, though, I want to bring up, we have Brent Biggs come up and join us. And I want to say a big thank you to the DataScore team for helping sponsor this session. So Brent, tell us a little bit about your business, about DataScore.
Yeah, so DataScore, oops, is it on?
We'll make it come on. There you go.
Yeah, so DataScore is taking the unreachable leads and turning them, connecting at them at 20, 30%, turning them into qualified inbounds.
So how is your business a little bit different from all the other players that are here?
Yeah, so those are a speed to lead approach, which much more of a scientific approach where we're only having to dial a user once or twice a month because of our high connectivity. Plus, if we are not able to connect, we're also sending them through SMS funnels and email.
And it just so happens that you are about to work with a good friend of mine in the call center space. So I know you've got a really good team with you. You have a booth?
No booth.
But where can they find you after this?
We'll be right over there watching the show.
I love it.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. Thanks you so much.
Thanks.
All right. So we'll jump in a little bit further. Again, my name is Kenneth Kinney, but friends call me Shark. I'm a keynote speaker, marketing strategist, a shark diver, and your chief shark officer. So let me click something here. Okay, so now the video queues up. What do you know? So anyway, excited to be here at Lead Generation World 2023, and got a great guest coming up today. We're going to talk about really, I'm going to call it kind of a startup story. And that startup story is with San Diego Loyal, which is the professional soccer team here in San Diego. So if you will, please give a warm welcome to the VP of Marketing at San Diego Loyal, Travis Lamprick. No, more than lukewarm. Let's give him a warm welcome, guys.
Okay.
Put your forks together as you're eating your cod fillets.
I like this setup.
Yeah, this is not Wilson, but it's close enough. You know, it's
on brand.
It's on brand. So tell us a little bit about your background in marketing in general.
Yeah. So I'm from Queens, New York. Went to LSU for college, majored in English.
The obvious place for somebody from Queens to go.
Correct. It started my track record of going to places where I didn't know anyone and had to learn my environment quickly. But didn't major in marketing or anything like that. Moved back to New York City and started working in marketing in the event world. So experiential and event marketing. Did that for a bit, then went in-house to a traditional agency. And then kind of came to a personal crossroads, and I wanted to do something that I was somewhat interested in. And that's always been three things, which is sports, politics, and film. The first thing was politics. I was literally watching House of Cards when House of Cards was popular, and made the decision. I was like, I can play this game if I can.
Kevin Spacey's not as popular as he used to be either.
Yes. Now it's a little weird, House of Cards, but bottom line, applied for a job in the New York City Council, which I like to say is the AAA to DC. Did that very successfully, and that actually led me to my job in soccer, my first job in soccer with the New York Cosmos, who happened to be moving to a district where the council member I worked for represented. So that started my ticket to sports, and now I've been in professional soccer for the last 5 years all across the country. Launched a team in Memphis from scratch, and then joined the Loyal about 1.5 years ago. The club is, this is going to be the 4th season. So yes, it's still like a startup and all those things, but I thrive off that startup environment.
So why soccer though? I mean, it's 3 teams now. You don't have a soccer
I
background.
don't have a soccer background. Didn't play
Can you
soccer.
do a bicycle kick?
Can't do a bicycle kick. If I played soccer, it'd probably be embarrassing to see. To be honest, it was my ticket into sports. I didn't really care what sport it was going to be. Could have been hockey, could have been anything. And I've stuck with it. I've definitely grown to love the game. But I do have an objective approach with it, and I think that actually helps. I'm a huge Mets fan, Giants fan. If I worked for those teams, I wouldn't be able to concentrate, right? So I think I see the sport in a different lens, and also from the civic and community lens, which is so important to that sport.
Yeah. Well, and many people know the Giants are the worst team in football.
Not this
Unfortunately,
weekend.
the Cowboys were this weekend.
Yes.
But what was it like starting up really a business, but a sports franchise?
Yeah.
Because you started in 2020 here, right?
So I joined. So the Loyal launched in 2020.
Who starts a outdoor business in California?
Yeah. So to give context, so I wasn't on the ground when the club started, but I know a lot of that history. In Memphis, I started from scratch. But yeah, so like the club launched in 2019. The brand didn't know what was coming, right, with COVID. So there was they had their first inaugural match, sellout, and then immediately after that was the COVID, the height of the pandemic. So the rest of the season, no fans. So the club had to maintain, really digital engagement for a long time until they were able to welcome fans back in the stands. And last year was kind of, it was like an abbreviated season, and full capacity didn't happen until later on. Last year, though, felt like our first real year. So big testament to the club of being able to maintain the attention with the fan base in the city while having no fans. And then last year, I feel like it really, we grew up, right, in a lot of ways.
Well, so when you have a brand like that, we talked about this before because of where you lived in Memphis. The Cosmos compete against a lot of different teams and shows and everything going on in New York. San Diego's probably a good fitting market for soccer to see some growth. Memphis, you wouldn't think of as the first market in right smack dab in the middle of SEC country for college football. How do you really approach how you either compete or align yourself with all the other sports teams, let alone all the other noise? I mean, because you got to compete with these beautiful beaches.
For sure.
It's interesting trying to create that balance.
We always say that we really compete against outdoor activities, right? Just going to the beach, like you said, going to the park, going to eat, right? But we pull you in once you come to a game. Our experience is, I might be biased, but it's unlike anything else in the sports arena in the city. And we try to also pull a lot of things from the city that's authentic to bring in not just a soccer fan, but everybody else. We want to be a source of civic pride, the club itself. We want to be a promoter of San Diego, almost like a tourism company, if you will. So I think we're clever in the way we approach everything we do. We tie in pop culture, things that are topical. For example, we just had our schedule release, and we did it with the theme of White Lotus, which is a show that everybody's watching, right? And we're able to connect, things that are happening in pop culture, tie into the city. So that's worked well for us.
So how do I guess from a Major League Soccer standpoint, and I've heard this from other people in similar roles with other events as well, how much or little do you sort of live on your own island being the San Diego team versus having the larger Major League Soccer brand behind you? Because the NBA does their level of support, and I know I've heard this from some NBA people in those marketing roles that, for them, it's still guerrilla marketing on the ground in their local market. They can't just live off the NBA name alone.
For sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we have to work a lot harder and smarter than everyone else.
Yeah.
Grassroots is a huge part of that. The person-to-person interaction is still, to me, the most important thing. It's essentially we're running a campaign of our own, right? Instead of trying to win, get your vote, we're trying to get you to come to our game. So grassroots is key to us. We have exciting projects coming up this year. We're going to have some murals and things like that. But the ground game is always important, and everything we do when we're creating content, when we have club announcements, player signings, all of that, we have to treat everything as priority and to make sure that we're doing something different to create that attention, right? And so far it's worked, but we can't ever lose our edge. We have to keep coming up with ideas constantly.
So you mentioned experience earlier, and you thought it was one of the best. If you think about where you were when you were in Memphis, that stadium has barbecue nachos, and everybody that's been to it knows it, and they're fantastic.
Yes.
What are the types of things you create from a customer experience standpoint that helps people really remember what they're getting uniquely at a San Diego Loyal game?
For sure. We take customer experience extremely seriously. So, there's a lot of touch points once you walk into the stadium, which is Torero Stadium, whether it's our security, our brand ambassadors, or even just members of our front office. Mm-hmm. Fans are being greeted, being welcomed back. So those touch points are happening immediately. We have local food trucks, craft beers. We have local musicians. We do halftime concerts. Try to inject literally the community into the game and into the team. Because it's also, yes, we all love soccer, but it's also a great thing to do for a couple hours on a Saturday night, right? It's entertainment. And there's not a lot of different options like that in San Diego. So I think we offer something that's different, fun. You don't have to spend, I love baseball, but it's three and a half hours, right? You could do something before the game and after. But we have a lot of fun. Then we have our fans, which in soccer especially, it's called supporter culture, which is this kind of rabid, loud fan base that's standing the entire time, playing drums, doing chants. A lot of people have never seen anything like that before. We've had people say, hey, I just want to come and sit next to that fan section, right? So that's something that's different as well. So I think it's a combination, and the game is highly competitive, world-class players. So there's a lot of different pieces, and they all intersect pretty well.
So speaking of the players, and this leans a little bit into social media, how much with a sports franchise does social media play for you as opposed to what you typically think of in other businesses that you work with?
Yeah, it's huge. It's the most important thing that we have.
It's such a softball question because I know I think we all know how important it is, but it's amazing how many of these players have big followings.
For sure. Social media is the most important thing that we have. It's our mouthpiece to the content that we're doing, our players' signings. It is the way that a lot of people find out about us. We do surveys and we always ask, how did you find out about us? Social media is always number one. We try to treat each channel differently. Twitter, right, is kind of your newsbreaker and maybe some of your banter and your voice. Mm-hmm. Instagram is your aesthetic, right? You want people to share that aesthetic on their account, so then other people find us through different ways. Facebook is kind of your community event space, right? We're going to be at this farmer's market. We're volunteering over here. So we try to treat them all differently. But look, it's cliche to say, content is king. Content lives on our social channels. People discover us through that content. So it literally is the most important thing.
So we have a mutual friend who just so happens to have a 16-year-old
yes,
that joined the Loyal this year.
Yes.
Free. What was that like? What's the kind of PR that can help you build awareness?
For sure.
Because that's major. I didn't know, and I was floored when I found out.
Big deal.
About Duran Free.
Big deal. He's a special talent. Duran is a special talent. The USL especially, right? The goal is the league brings professional soccer to markets that might not have it, right? And one benefit of that is literally scouting local talent and literally creating that path to pro in a real way, right? So Duran was in our academy. He is now on the first team. That is something that is very rare in this country. In terms of PR, that is a story that everyone wants to read, right? Mm-hmm. Hometown product develops and plays for his hometown team. So that was a front page story in the Tribune. We got a lot of, it was in the Sunday paper actually, and a lot of people that weren't following us reached out about the story. And just to say how proud they were, because it also creates another source of civic pride. But it was huge for us, huge for Duran. And hopefully Duran's not the last player, right, that we developed and plays for the first team. But storytelling is key, and that's just a great story.
So what's it like working with Landon Donovan, who's, very arguably the greatest player that's lived in the States anyway?
Yeah, and I've had the privilege. I worked with Tim Howard in Memphis, right? And Landon and Tim are very different, but alike in a lot of ways.
A foot shorter too.
Yes. But Landon's great. Landon is, he is just as committed to the loyal as anyone else in our front office. I was just with him today talking about player signings. He has full grasp on really everything that we do, not just the player side, whether it's marketing, PR, community. He soaks it up, and then he also contributes in a lot of ways, whether it's ideas or asking good questions, things like that. It's been great to work with him. Again, I didn't grow up a soccer fan, right? So I knew of him, but I didn't know the impact. And then sometimes I see when fans are with him or somebody that's, been dying to me ever so long, I'm like, wow, I forget sometimes. But it's a privilege to work with him, and he's certainly one of the best in the biz in his role. And he brings a lot to our club, more than just the soccer side.
Mike, we need to give this ball away later as a raffle and sign Landon Donovan, but I'll just spell it wrong. So that way we're safe,
Yeah.
So how do you go about now with a new sport, not a new sport, but right. Relatively new in this city, creating loyal fans? What's loyal to the loyal?
Yeah. So,
well, let me follow up one thing. Soccer is one of those things that if you can get the average Joe to pull in, you're a Giants fan.
Yeah.
You live 3,000 miles away from them. You're going to hang on to them ride or die team forever.
Yes.
That's for the most part. Nobody had that before a few years ago.
Yep.
And when you're trying to create a Dallas Cowboys brand, one that's as esteemed but has sucked for 25 years, it's hard to create that loyalty without having some history.
For sure. And we don't have a lot of history, right, compared to other teams. But what I think we have stayed true to is, again, embedding the community into everything we do. So one example of that, obviously, Mexico, right? Those are our, across the border, those are our friends, those are our community. We have, there's so much crossover, right, between the two places. And we launched our third jersey last year, basically paid tribute to Mexican and Mexican-American heritage, right? And there's a local nonprofit here called the Chicano Federation, which I'm now on the board of, which is another privilege to be, and I've only been here over a year. But they are a nonprofit that really works on servicing impoverished families and youth. And we put them on the back of this jersey to donate 10% of those proceeds back to them. But overall, it was, we put out a video, we put out a storytelling of this truly authentic piece that the community just embraced. And you got young kids wearing the jerseys. It starts young. And that authenticity just will continue to grow, right? And we see it happen. So in those moments, we're always trying to create special moments beyond the field of play. And yes, it is marketing as well. But that doesn't mean marketing can't also be community driven, right?
Oh, 100%. No, communities, one of the last bastions of, cut through a lot of the other stuff. Have you seen a big number of super fans?
Yes, our supporters section, it's because you have to zoom out sometimes, right? Yeah. That there are fans and they're collecting everything just like any other team. We have a podcast that has like 15,000 downloads. We launched it last year. We have super fans, and that's also a privilege because sometimes
you have
forget.
The ones like comparable to where you come from. Like the Devils fans where people are painted in face paint.
Full on everything, face paint, tattoos.
Thinking of Cuddy from Seinfeld. So
we've seen it all. We have there's a diehard, very passionate fan base that, they're super worried about our roster, right? And they're asking questions of player signings and things like that. But we are truly lucky to have that, right?
Yeah.
And then you hope that just spurs other groups, right, to join in as well.
They're probably going to start asking, did the 16-year-old, how did he do on his English test? So it's coming at some point.
This is true.
So when you think about the World Cup and how that played in, how did that help or fuel a lot of your growth?
Well, I think that's, on par with this conference. We're talking about lead generation, right? So we actually
it's a hell of a lead gen tool.
Yes. Yeah. So we actually hosted along with the San Diego Symphony at the Rady Shell, which is a beautiful venue here downtown. We hosted a 2-day World Cup watch party at this outdoor venue for the USA-England game and Mexico-Argentina. And so we partnered with them, and a part of that was you had to RSVP. It was a free event, but all those RSVPs were emails, and we had over 10,000 attendees over the 2 days. So from a lead generation perspective, it's exactly what we wanted. But it was also obviously just great to see the whole city come together to watch, World Cup soccer. And again, the cross-border relations of seeing 5,000 people for USA, 5,000 people show up for Mexico. It was a beautiful thing to see. But certainly anytime there's a World Cup, it's an advertisement for the game. It's an advertisement for us that you could also watch your local soccer team, right, in your backyard. And it no doubt helps.
Well, when you start thinking about, because a few years from now, we're going to have it here in the States, does that come into your marketing strategy at this point? Is it too early to?
No, I feel like we've been talking about it ever since it was announced, while I was at the league office or the other teams. Everyone's always talking about 2026, right? I think it's what every team in this country, professional, amateur, right, is kind of like looking at is how can we leverage it, and then how can we continue to just holistically grow the game as well. But I don't think it'll be the highest platform, right, that the sport has had in this country since 1994 when it really took a turn, and then you saw the evolution of MLS and all those things. I'm excited about it. We're all excited about it, and certainly Southern California will play a big role in that.
So when you think about the sport as well, women have had such explosive growth because of how well they've played. They've dominated a lot of the conversation in soccer for a couple of decades, I guess, ever since their big win. And they've also fought for a lot of equity in their pay. How do you because you've got another team here, it's the Wave,
the San Diego Wave.
Yeah. How do you sort of really compete against that? Because the women, it's very odd in a sport where they would garner that much more attention anywhere than a men's team.
Yeah, and I don't even think we don't look at them as competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Do your seasons?
Seasons do kind of overlap. I think we have seen very different fan bases for both.
Sure.
We work together very well.
Yeah.
We co-host events. They were at the Rady Shell World Cup event. We're definitely going to support them during the Women's World Cup this summer. Bottom line, all soccer is good.
Yeah.
Rising tide lifts all boats, and there's never been a better time to be a fan of soccer in San Diego and support it as well. Yeah. And it's more eyeballs on the game.
Exactly. Right? I think from an education standpoint here in the U.S., you could not have a better opportunity to leverage a women's sport to help elevate a men's sport and vice versa.
For sure.
Because I'm sure they're seeing growth because you have a team here as well.
Yes.
Just the conversation
feeds in,
about soccer.
Yes. When they were launching, we were giving them, our market advice, right, at the same time. And again, it's similar to, with Duran, you got a lot of young girls looking that they could play for their hometown team, right? So it's a beautiful thing. Not to be cliche, a beautiful game, right? But there's never been a time like this, I think, in the country and San Diego specifically.
So when you think about that, we're talking about lead generation and all the things to help build a brand and help, for you at least, I think some of that is putting butts in seats.
That's probably the entire thing.
Exactly. Where's your biggest channel that you take advantage of when you know that, hey, we didn't have enough people for last Saturday's game. We got a big game coming up in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. What do you do to try to help drive the numbers the most when you think of it from a higher standpoint?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. We're at a ton of community events every week, whether that's your local farmers market or, a sponsored event, wine and beer festival, right? Something like that. Getting leads at all these events, obviously, enter to wins. We have digital enter to win contests. We have giveaways at our games, right? There are theme nights, not like minor league baseball per se, but similar to that, right? To entice people to come out. But it's really just, again, it's a constant campaign online and offline, right? We have to be at places where you think we might not be, right? To introduce ourselves to a new audience. For example, like we've been on NPR. We might not think of a soccer team to be on NPR, but that's a new audience, right?
Sure.
But it's just it's a constant grind, and I say it grinds in a good way.
A lot of those listeners weren't even familiar with sports in general.
Correct.
I mean,
right? So it's like, how can you tie in? There's always common threads, right?
Yeah.
And how do we just tie them in? But
yeah. So when you brought that up about baseball, made me think as well. How do you really look to position the loyal? Again, because you lived in Memphis, you helped start up 901 FC, and you played in the baseball stadium, where the AAA affiliate
Redbirds,
for the Memphis Redbirds, AAA affiliate St. Louis Cardinals. There's so much that's similar in the grassroots marketing, but talk a little bit about what's similar and then what's completely different.
Yeah, I think a good example would be in Memphis. In soccer, especially American soccer, there are traditions that happen before kickoff.
Sure.
Right? And I felt like we needed something in Memphis. And so we decided to have a Memphis celebrity smash a guitar before kickoff, right? Might seem minor league, but the city truly embraced it because of the people that participated in the guitar smash. So we had John Morant, we had Penny Hardaway, we had the Memphis football coach, and then the newspaper, the Commercial Appeal, started to cover us game to game, but also because they were guessing who's going to smash the guitar this week. The guitar smash gets sponsored by Memphis Travel, which is kind of like Visit SD here. And it was celebrated. It's a fun thing. It still goes on now. But once the game starts, it's all about the soccer. There's not a lot of downtime to do what they kind of do in minor league baseball, right? There's always something going on between innings, things like that. And the level of play, when you educate this, when you try to say what's the difference between minor league baseball and USL is not minor league. A USL team can beat an MLS team any day. Like, that can happen. A AAA baseball team beating an MLB team, kind of far-fetched.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Where did you get all the guitars from?
We ordered them
Across
on
the street?
Amazon.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, we wanted to get it from Gibson, but I don't know what happened there. Or Gibson was like moving their factory at the time or something.
Out.
But yeah, Amazon.
Yeah. So when you compare yourself to other businesses that not in the sports world, what do you take from what other businesses do that you can apply to sports, and vice versa? What do you take from the sports world? What advice would you give to people who are not running a major league sports marketing team?
Yeah. No, I again, like pop culture, music, film. I read a lot. I really try to absorb everything around me, and I'm always applying things that I read, watch into what we're doing. And I'd say for anything, right? For no matter what industry you are, definitely be doing that constantly, or else you will be behind.
Go into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I want to hear what type of stuff you're listening to and talking to.
Yeah, I mean, just again, not to keep going on the schedule release, but right, obviously White Lotus, popular show right now, right? Everybody's talking about it. In San Diego, we're lucky to have a beautiful park called Balboa Park. Yes. We also have a beautiful museum, the San Diego Museum of Art, right? The aesthetic of those two things represent our city, but also weirdly kind of fit into that White Lotus theme, right? So we went out, we took photos of Balboa Park to celebrate Balboa Park. We took photos of the San Diego Museum of Art. Then we took our photos of our games and we put kind of like a paint texture and then edited it into this mimic of the White Lotus intro. Basically incorporating, right, the city with something that's topical, putting it together. And right now, I think we're almost at 200,000 views on Twitter for a USL team. Like, it's it's pretty amazing what you can do when, again, something is authentic and you're pulling something that is topical, right? So I think that's one example. Last year we did match day posters for each game, and the theme was just different movies, whether they were old or new. People wanted to buy them. Again, you're just tapping into interests maybe beyond the field of play. But I'm always pulling, from media and things that I see, and then how do we apply it to what we're doing?
Yeah, and I don't think nearly, and you said it, you explained it better than the question I was going to ask. But I don't think nearly enough people really think through that because they listen to the bubble of all the
You're too
typical noise. And
Yes.
it'd be very easy for you to only listen to what every other marketing person at a Major League Soccer team said or a Major League Sports team said.
Yes.
Sometimes it's good just to pick up Shakespeare or
Yes.
John Grisham
Yes.
or listen to Rihanna and watch her do a runway show or something and pull something that has nothing to do with your business.
Correct.
To drive leads, because that's at the retail level where most of your consumers are.
100%. And that's, merchandise plays a big role in what we do.
Exactly.
And that's like, you have to pull from outside sources or else you're not going to sell and not move merch, right, to different interests.
So what's the most important piece of marketing advice you've ever gotten and employed that worked? And what's the worst that you've learned from?
It's a good question. I will say, and maybe it is marketing, but the first agency that I was at, the CEO was a bit eccentric, but very smart. And he told me how to write an email.
How to try to write an email?
He basically taught me how to really write an email. Like, yes, I knew how to write emails, but like to get what I want, to control whatever the situation was, to communicate effectively, from whether it was the wording or the how it's laid out. It is something that I have taken with me ever since then. And it might sound small, but a lot of people can't write emails, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Regardless of the subject. So I've taken that with me forever, and it's something that I also carry on to my team that works for me as well.
So this is probably the most important question we'll cover, but how important has Ted Lasso been?
It's interesting. Your second part of your question was, what's the worst advice?
Yes.
I think.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
I think I don't have like one thing.
It was probably going to be the same answer for the Ted Lasso question.
Yeah, I would say in general terms, I don't always follow the rules in terms of like, you have to post.
Wait, that's a bad thing?
It's a good thing. I'm saying,
Yes,
I'd say the bad advice of like follow all these rules, right? Like posting something at this time, you're going to get this engagement. Yeah. Like, I don't believe in that necessarily. Even email marketing, like, open rates or at this time, you got to know your audience and learn from what's happening.
Your content has to be good.
And your content has to be good.
Because it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yes.
Crap at 8 a.m.
Totally.
Exactly.
So that would be my one piece there. Ted Lasso.
Yeah. What effect has that had, at least, for helping get people to talk more about soccer in even the local community?
Yeah. I think we saw, especially during the pandemic, right? That's when the show, I think, really reached its all-time popularity. Again, it was pulling in people that really weren't soccer fans, right? They were playing on the emotive part of it. He's a nice guy, right? And all the sweet stories throughout the seasons, right? And I think people overall were looking for a happy ending and a nice story, especially during that time. And I think we try to do the same thing in terms of just playing to emotions, right? How do we, whether it's, a player announcement, a schedule release, or a home opener, or whatever it is, how are we making you laugh, cry, moved, hyped up, whatever it is? So playing to those emotions, that's what Ted Lasso did.
So explain something to me about soccer, because I played soccer and I played football as a kid. Why is it that even a whiff of air will knock them over and they go through Shakespearean drama and theater presentation on the stage and fall down? And then they get up and they're fine 2 seconds later.
Look, soccer, as you kind of just alluded to, soccer is an art. And that is a part of the art, right? I'm
going to hold this up. I was bringing out the yellow flag, the yellow card.
My knee. But yeah, it's a part of the game. It's obviously leverage for the situation, right, to get the call on your side. But I think it's part of the flair and the drama and the art of it. I think it's it's getting, I feel like the NBA has started to crack down on that, on the flopping, right? But it's never going to go away in soccer, and I think it's a part of the game that is maybe you don't like, but there's strategy behind it.
It's weird because when we watch the World Cup, they would fall and you would see them kind of like looking around and like, is the the camera on me?
Yes.
Should I cry? And then
it's the game within the game.
And then you see something happen like DeMar Hamlin, and it just stops you, and it's real.
Yes.
And it should be shown to every soccer player so that it doesn't. I mean, people want to jump up and they've got concern for the player, but then they twisted a toe or something.
Right.
So they're amazing athletes, though, and it's
a lot of running.
A lot of running, and you get to watch.
Yes,
just watch them run.
Perfect place for me.
Post this on Instagram how they're running.
Yeah.
So, what do you have the most fun with your job? Because it's a dream job. I mean, you're so incredibly lucky. It's crazy.
Yes, it is a dream job. I am lucky to have this job. My team, I have extremely talented individuals doing video, graphics, photo, social media, writing, copywriting, all those things. Every day, to be honest, coming in, no matter how I'm feeling, I am happy when I walk in the building. I get to work with this great group. We get to tell stories. We get to think of ideas and then actually do them. There's so many, if you're working at a bigger team per se, right? A lot more red tape to get an idea across.
Sure.
We truly do whatever we want to do in terms of the creative side. So that's a joy for me. And hopefully I'm doing this for a long time.
Yeah. So, well, what do you see as your biggest challenge and biggest opportunity over the next few years? Because I know as the team continues to grow, there's still plenty of noise. There's still a Legoland and a SeaWorld and beaches and people who drive. I mean, it's California. It's a different environment here.
No doubt. Awareness.
And I don't know if that's the biggest challenge or not.
No,
there's so many I can name.
I'll just say awareness will always be a challenge, just period, right? So, and you're never satisfied, right? You're like, it's never enough for we need more, articles in the Tribune. We need more social media engagement. We need more ads, on the public transit, whatever it is, right? But we can't operate on a budget that's like an MLS team or anything like that. So you have to continue to be crafty with what you're doing, but awareness is always the biggest thing, right? It's just like you said, there's so many other things to do, whether it's free or ticketed, right? How do you make somebody want to spend their disposable income on the San Diego Loyal, right? So that's always the challenge, and I think we do a good job, but we need more. We need more people knowing about us. We need more people coming to the stadium, and that's a never-ending battle, right? So that'll remain even at the highest level. That'll still be the challenge.
And it's so funny because that's the same problem every business has.
Same problem.
Just people don't talk about it as much. What do you see as the biggest, opportunity?
Biggest opportunity for us is growth. Continuing to grow. We have a lot of, I wish I could share more, but we have a lot of aspirational goals that are coming up, whether that is the future of the club, to the development side, we want to be the best USL championship team we could be and the best professional soccer teams to represent the city, but we're always going to want more.
What's the most well-known of soccer team of all the soccer teams here in the U.S.?
Like just as a whole,
as a particular city.
I would say right now, LAFC, they're killing it up there.
I was thinking of the Cosmos too, just because
Cosmos is the brand name, but I think that's even starting to waver a little bit. But in terms of like a team that is doing it right on and off the field, LAFC has, and they came in. The Galaxy were a household name, right?
Yeah, right.
They came into the city and almost kind of pushed them over a little bit. But they've done everything right from community to on the field. And they're a team, honestly, that we look at a lot to emulate.
So let's say the Clippers and the Chargers move back here. Is that a threat?
I would love it.
Or does it just work together?
Work together. Yeah, I love we have a good relationship with the Padres, the Wave. I would love more entertainment because it's more touch points for all of us, and I would hope that they would want to work together with us as well. But again, rising tide lifts all boats. More entertainment there is. Yes, there is a competition factor, but at the end of the day, we're pulling from the same people, right? So why not have the same people know about all of us?
So if you were playing the Padres in baseball, do you have a shot of getting one run?
If we're playing,
Yeah.
What do you mean, the
if
Loyal?
the Loyal are playing the Padres, do you have a shot of getting one run?
I would say no.
So if the Padres were playing the Loyal, do they have a shot of getting one goal?
There are a couple players on the Padres. Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
Jurickson Profar. I don't know if I think he might still be a free agent, but he was actually on our podcast, that are big soccer fans and definitely play. I think there'd be a more likely chance of a Padres player scoring a goal than us scoring a goal.
So if you could change one thing about the sport itself, what would you change? Would it be more scoring with bigger goals and nets?
Good question.
Would it be?
I'll tell you, the one thing I'll never understand is how stoppage time is really not like a calculated thing, and it's just kind of whatever the referee, unless there's something that
There's
no one
nobody
knows.
on the sideline going, there's a dramatic pause. Let's say 4 seconds there.
Not that I don't know if I would change that, but it's just one thing that I'm like, it's amazing that exists in the most popular sport in the world, something that basically isn't measurable and kind of made up. But yeah, I always think about that. I'm like, so there's no like calculation of how it's happening. Maybe there is, but.
Well, so most industries, don't have video games to support them. I'm playing a lot of European League on Nintendo Switch right now with my son.
That's fun.
How much is working in that mix and conversation? How much do video games help support?
Yeah, I think
the awareness.
Great example. Our front of kit sponsor last year was Rocket League, which is a vehicular soccer video game. Cars playing soccer, basically. So front of kit sponsor, and we tapped into a market that definitely did not know about us on a national scale. And then the USL is actually in eFootball, which is kind of like a FIFA game. So that also helps. So I'd say we're actually more ingrained than I would have even thought into the video game world. And Rocket League was definitely a boost to that. But it's something that we got to pay attention to, or else we'll lose your son, right?
Well,
he won't be interested.
I think it's fascinating. I've always loved soccer. I remember one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life was in Brazil at the championship game at Morumbi Stadium. There were 150,000 people there. It's a religion in Brazil. I remember, not that long ago when Pele died, how many people had the last name Nascimento? It was a religion. It was such a beloved figure down there. And I'm hoping that develops. But I will say there's so many other sports here that take place. I'm a big MMA fanatic and pro football fanatic. And between the two, the thing, especially during the pandemic, that grabbed my attention was Ted Lasso playing a lot of video game soccer. Getting outside and playing at home and stuff like that as well. But it consumed a lot more. It helped drive me a lot more to look at the sport than I initially thought of. I don't know. I'm in the World Cup. I was already going to watch anyway. And I'm not I'm more than a casual fan, but there's so much opportunity to grab.
Yeah, it's another example of just
that.
Pop culture pulling you in, right, in a different way. So pop culture is a tool that no matter what business you're using, you should use.
Well, so no diving in Baton Rouge at LSU in that part of the world. The water's nasty down in New Orleans anyway. But I came in 2 days ago to go diving, and I was messed up with this weather going on right now, so there was no diving. But I asked this of all my guests.
Okay.
What is your favorite kind of shark and why?
Favorite kind of shark? I might not be that sophisticated with my sharks. Am I going to go cliche and just say the great white because it's scary and, I don't know what I would do if I saw one. But anything big, right, is a spectacle.
There you go.
But yeah, I'll go with the great white.
All right. Well, Travis, it's a special time of the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting, important questions that you're going to be asked today?
Let's do it. I hope I'm
These
interesting.
are easy and clean, though.
I hope I'm interesting.
All right. Pele.
Okay.
Was he the GOAT or not the GOAT?
So our club president is Brazilian, and I've had this conversation with him, especially with Messi, right, winning it this year. I will say he's the GOAT, and I will connect it to pop culture real quick.
Victory
He is
in the movie.
right, but so I think he is. So The Sopranos.
Yeah.
The Sopranos is to me the best TV show of all time. The Sopranos laid a lot of groundwork and examples of what you could do with TV. I think Pele did that for soccer. So what you see now, whether it's Messi or whoever, they're doing the things that Pele did a long time ago. Same thing with TV shows now, like a White Lotus. If it wasn't for The Sopranos, they're not doing what they're doing.
I was so prepared to pull the yellow card in case you said, but Pele was the Muhammad Ali
Correct.
in 3 World Cups. Messi is amazing, but he won 1.
Correct.
So
Pele is the GOAT.
Pele's the GOAT. And I just remembered not that long ago the movie Victory with Sylvester Stallone and Michael Caine and Pele.
Might have to rewatch that.
It's a good movie. It's the Allies imprisoned in a Nazi camp, and they want to take the soldiers to take the inmates.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch this.
I looked it up. It was like 40 years old.
Wow.
This I think was pre-Rocky even.
Wow.
But they end up playing the German national team, and it's a
I will rewatch
France,
this.
in Allied
Yeah.
France, so that they could humiliate the Allies. But it's actually a decent movie.
Cool.
All right, number 2. If you were going out to eat, I had this question last night. Would you rather go to hang out, get some culture, grab a good meal, the Gaslamp District or Little Italy?
Little Italy. I'm biased. I live in Bakersfield. I live close.
Okay.
I have to say that the Italian food in Little Italy is actually good. I'm from New York. I might have, been a little bit worrisome about that, but I would go to Little Italy.
All right, number 3. Greatest coach of a soccer team that you've ever known, Landon Donovan or Ted Lasso?
There's a little bit of Ted Lasso in Landon Donovan.
Yeah, and I don't think Landon would be offended if you said Ted because it's a ridiculous.
I'll go with Landon.
Okay.
Landon brings a lot more experience than Ted Lasso.
Exactly.
So we'll go with the experience.
You got to believe.
All
right, number 4. They're coming to town. Would you rather see the New York Giants or the New York Jets?
If they were
No. Let me back that up. Would you rather go see the New York Giants if they were playing a game
in San Diego.
Or let's say you were in LA up the street,
Okay.
or maybe LSU playing USC or UCLA because you're an LSU grad?
I did go see the Giants play the Chargers last year, and they got destroyed. I think LSU USC actually would be more unique.
If it's a nighttime game, it's a party
At
with
the
LSU.
Rose Bowl, like I've never seen
yeah.
that. So I'll go LSU USC.
All right. Number 5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Ooh, biscuits.
Cajun food.
Biscuits.
Yeah, biscuits are pretty hard to beat. I'm always intrigued. So Travis, where do people find out more about you, keep up with the club, and a lot more?
Yeah. Just go at San Diego Loyal. Find out more about San Diego Loyal. Follow us on social, sdloyal.com. Season tickets are on sale right now. Group tickets kick off March 11th. It's going to be the best year yet.
And you've promised everybody in here free tickets for a year.
Yes, let me know. Shoot me an email, travisl@sdloyal.com.
Awesome. Travis, thank you so much for being with us on A Shark's Perspective. All right, so that was this episode, and a couple of key takeaways. Let me see if something clicks up. Turn up the music. Let me go back. It may or may not play. 3 key takeaways from our conversation with Travis Lamprick with the San Diego Loyal Head of Marketing and Communications. 1, I think community is so important in any business, but especially the grassroots level, even in a major league business, major league soccer business, for anybody. Number 2, learn as much as you can from outside of your bubble, if you will, of knowledge. Just don't listen to marketing and advertising and lead gen nerds like me, but learn from other forms in pop media as well. Number 3, this has been an amazing conference. Loved having you up here, and everybody have a great rest of your show. Got a question? Send me an email to Kenneth@asharksperspective.com. and we'll post this podcast here soon. Everybody give Travis Lamprick a big hand.
Thanks, man.